On behalf of the school committee, I would like to welcome you and congratulate you on being selected as the finalist for superintendent in the Dudley-Charlton Regional School District. Before we begin, I'd like to go over our format for this evening. For the next hour, committee members will be asking you a series of questions, with every member asking at least one question. We ask that you keep your response brief, except where a question has multiple parts, as we hope to ask somewhere between 12 and 15 questions within the appointed time frame, okay? And if time permits, at the end of our questions, you will be able to provide some closing remarks. Members, before asking your questions, please introduce yourself, and we will start with Elaine.
Hi, Dr. Whaley. It's nice to see you again.
Hi, nice to see you.
Nice to see you again. I'm Kathy Carmignani.
I'm Stephanie Reed.
Pauline O'Coin.
Mary Ann Tossi.
Hi, Catherine Cabala.
Hi.
Hi, nice to see you again. Jamie Terry.
Hi.
And Elaine, you'll start.
So it's a multi-part question. Feel free to ask me to repeat it if you need me to do so. The educator evaluation process has been in place for several years now. Can you speak to how you utilize the system to develop your educators and administrative team to improve their craft? Can you provide examples of using this process to help a staff member grow their skill set, using the process to address an underperforming staff member, using the process so that functions such as observation are seen as a positive? Finally, how have you set your own yearly goals to address both the needs of your supervisors and your desire for personal and professional growth? What type of support and feedback do you find beneficial?
That is quite the question.
Yeah.
At this point in my career, I feel very comfortable in the evaluation process, both from working with teachers, other administrators, and support staff. I try to make it a yearly goal to visit as many classrooms as possible. I find it very informative. It's been one of our goals in my current district, where we've all challenged ourselves to meet the 500 classroom visit kind of goal. And that's separate and apart from our evaluation system, but it just lends information to what's happening in the classroom and provides a real nice diagnostic of kind of what's going on in the school. With the evaluation system, it's multiple parts in terms of working with the teacher, setting yearly goals, multiple observations, multiple conferences, and then determining a final rating. I have primarily, in my time as principal, done the majority of the evaluations. The assistant principals are pretty busy, so I've taken that role on myself. I currently have a staff, I think it's 62 teachers this year. They don't have to be evaluated every year in Rhode Island, but I'm doing 75% of them. There have been years where I've taken all 100% of the teaching staff. We generally split up the support staff, but that also includes custodians, and so I feel like I have a lot of experience in evaluating staff. My approach philosophically is to try to make it as supportive and positive as possible. Sometimes that's not, it's unavoidable where you encounter a staff member who needs a support plan. But my approach is to keep it focused on the goals, focused on supporting student achievement, and really working with each individual to set goals that are realistic and achievable. I think we try to set goals with each teacher and or administrator that are based in data and relate to improving student outcomes in some form or fashion. I'm losing track of the parts.
Okay, so the other question I had was, how do you set your own yearly goals to address both the needs of your supervisors and your desire for personal and professional growth? And what type of support and feedback do you benefit from?
I think for me, I try to, I set challenging goals. I want to have the best school in the district. I want to be a part of the best district in the state. And so I try to challenge myself in terms of the goals that I set. Much of it has been around improving the culture and climate, improving our graduation rate, and designing programs that meet a continuum of needs. I think the feedback that I prefer is feedback that is consistent, that encourages my growth. You know, I think in general you need a constant feedback, both constructive and positive. And you don't grow without the constructive feedback. I'm not a big believer or proponent in feedback that is overly negative or is critical in nature, because that doesn't support or nurture growth in anyone. To go to the question in terms of, I have developed multiple performance improvement plans with staff. Typically, those are multi-tiered in nature and have a variety of goals. Generally, we'll select a number of indicators, depends on what their content area is, and we walk through that process. I've also been a part of multiple teacher termination processes, which has stemmed from the evaluation in moving a teacher out of the school and district. So unfortunately, I do have experience with those more negative areas, but my general philosophy is always to be supportive and to work with individuals and really meet them at their level. To go back to feedback, my approach would be, and it's nice in my current district, administrators we support one another in that process, so that constructive feedback part of school improvement and leadership development is there for us, and we work with one another to provide that support. And there's also a central office role. So I think for me and for working with other people, it's more constructive and trying to get individuals to think about things in maybe a different way, a different light than how they originally thought of it.
Thank you.
Could you explain what steps you might take to reduce and close any achievement gaps that could exist between student groups, whether within the district or between sister schools, and between demographics?
My science background makes me a data person. I'm very much into data, and looking at kind of all of the aggregate performance data, demographic breakdowns, that's a part of my job I enjoy. So I think you also have to get into the culture of a school in terms of understanding the data and working with the staff, with the building administrators to understand what decisions have been made. I think if you're looking at, in this case, the MCAS data and looking at the subgroups, I think one of the things I've noticed in looking at just the district data is there are some needs in the students with special needs demographic and not necessarily making as much progress or hitting the yearly goal. So I think that would be something that I would wonder about and want to work with the special education director and the building administrators on, and look to identify why that's happening. What's the process and programs that we have in place, and then how can we address that gap moving forward? I think one of the phrases that I've heard in the district and is excellence and equity. So I think looking at that and in that mind frame and really, I like to get in the weeds, and like I said, we look at grade data, grade analyses, standardized assessment data, universal screens, benchmarking, common assessments. I like to get my hands on all of that because I found that you really want to triangulate. You're not going to have one piece of data that tells the whole story. You may have one piece of data that is indicating that, there's a deficiency or a system you need to address, but you have 3 other pieces of data that are saying things are okay. So I think when you look at data, you want to make sure you have a complete picture and data story in terms of the decisions that you're going to make. That's my approach to data use.
As a leader of the district, how would you obtain the buy-in of staff and administration for change or new ideas to bring us from good to great?
I think the district is already pretty good. I've been really, really impressed. The number of people that I met on the site visit. I can't speak highly enough of the district and how impressed I was with everybody that I met. I think it comes with, I've talked in the district, I talked a lot about relationships and relationship building and really identifying, and I know the district has a lot of balls in the air right now, and really identifying, the critical needs and working with building leaders, the teachers, to really create that energy and momentum to move things forward. But that's already, I think that's already here. There's a lot of energy and a lot of hope that the next leader will kind of come in and set that course. So, I think from an outside perspective, the district is right there. It's really just kind of having somebody come in and having a really high energy level and kind of motivating people through the inevitable implementation dips that can happen, and staying the course. I think one of the things that I've heard is that, from teachers, administrators, students, just to stay the course and be consistent. And a lot of what I will say tonight will come back to relationships. And so that comes from the relationship piece, really working with people and not being afraid to do the work and work hand in hand. And here's our direction, let's go.
How important to you are community ideas and parent/community input into district decision-making? How will you facilitate the flow of information from the district parents and community? How will you facilitate the flow of ideas and critical feedback from parents and other citizens back to the district?
I think you need a multiple of approaches, kind of multi-tiered effort. I think you want to leverage social media. I think the district has a pretty comprehensive website. I think that would be a way. Twitter, Facebook, I've seen all of that. There's a very active Facebook presence among the staff and the PTO organizations. So I think that would be one way. I think currently I have a student advisory board. I have school improvement team that involves parents. I've just created a board focused on athletics, for one board for students, one board for parents. And so I think I'm very open to having that community input and feedback. This, in a certain sense, it's the schools reflect the community, so parents, students, community members need to have that voice. And I think, part of what the superintendent does is they structure that opportunity for input and feedback. I'm a strong believer in, focus groups are one way, surveys are another good way to generate some of that feedback. Having an open door, having parents know that they can communicate, and that you're going to be responsive to that communication, I think is another way. I think as I've thought about this role, and some of the things that I think work, having coffee hours in the community, at the Dunkin' Donuts where you just let people know that's where you're going to be, and you have conversations, letting people know that you're going to be transparent about what's going on in the district. So I think those would be some of the different ways I would communicate and gather feedback. I think it's really on multiple levels, but also comes back to that relationship piece. Being in the community, being visible, being at community events, being at athletic events, just being present is critical and important for somebody in this role.
Okay. Can you give us some experiences that you have had as an administrator and outcomes that came from them, and explain how they would help us see your potential as a superintendent?
I've had a number of experiences that I'm proud of, but it's the breadth of my career and just the involvement, I think, in anything that goes on in a school or district. Starting out as a science teacher, but at the same time being a coach, being a class advisor, being a yearbook advisor, then moving into a role of handling discipline and working with teachers on discipline, writing curriculum, from a classroom teacher perspective, going through the alignment, developing assessments, to the administrative role of developing curricula for all the content areas. When I had started in Burrville, we needed to develop curricula in all the areas. We needed to develop a graduation system, develop common assessments for each course and grade level, develop a digital portfolio, and then that continued focus on expanding our extracurricular program. So I think it's the breadth of my experience, and then relating that to the needs of this district, and looking at the Dudley-Charlton strategic plan and seeing I've got a lot of experiences that relate to where this district wants to go. And that's one of the reasons I feel like I would be a really good fit. I have a lot of the practical experience in terms of the technology and the infrastructure and the development of common assessments, of project-based learning. I'm a very adept school scheduler. I schedule the building right now. I consult with the other district principals on scheduling, and I'm very, the fiscal situation is very similar between Burrville and Dudley-Charlton, and so being very creative with limited resources has made me resourceful. So I just think it's the total experience that has kind of brought me to this point where I see myself, and I feel like I would be a good fit. And my experiences would relate very well to the staff in the district.
Thank you.
Right. Control is an important element in managing a school district. How do you manage being in control without being overly controlling of the staff and so forth?
You have to trust people to do their job. I think a lot of it comes to trust. A lot of it comes back to that relationship piece and building a rapport and a relationship where and even that feedback piece where there's kind of that constant dialogue, and at this point, I like to trust that people are going to do their job, but also that they keep me informed. And so I think when I don't feel like I'm informed is when I ask the question of what's going on. Where are we at in the area that we're thinking about or looking at. I have different groups that I regularly meet with, and we talk about the systems, the processes that we have going on. And so it's that building that kind of system of communication, that relationship, to where you're comfortable and you've built that trust. I think part of that is hiring the right people for the job. So really having a good hiring policy, hiring system in place to where you're attracting quality talent and then working with them so that the job gets done. I'm not a big believer in micromanagement. I'm not a big believer in really getting into that conflict, the conflict, the power struggle. I'm not afraid of having a difficult conversation with someone. That's never been an issue for me, but I've certainly learned how to keep that very professional and respectful and have a respectful dialogue through the process. But you hire people, you want to let them do their job. Do you need to be informed? Yes, but you also need to, if they're not doing the job, then you go through the supervision process and you work with them so they can do a better job.
Hi.
Hey?
When on the site visit in Rhode Island, we learned a lot about how you have worked to find creative ways to work on many different challenges that your staff and/or students have faced. Examples of such being raising the graduation rate from the 70th percentile to the 90th percentile, creating working groups to address many different topics, and out-of-the-box solutions to concerns with vaping. Without having the time to physically be present in every school every day, how would you foresee being able to introduce concepts to areas of concern on a larger level district-wide across 7 schools and 2 towns?
I feel like I'm beating a drum here, but it's really about the relationships. I think the school district has very invested administrators, and those are really the point people for each school, and so it would be really building and establishing a new leader coming in, kind of blending into that already cohesive team, and I think one of the things, bringing a different perspective to the district and each school. For me, I would envision it would be a process of the first few months of really having a lot of conversations, looking at school-based data, looking at what are the issues, what are the staffing issues, the facility issues, and really doing some planning, and then I would envision putting together a communication plan, working with bringing some of that back to the school committee, and it would be that I would come back to the relationships. I think I said earlier there are a lot of the balls in the air for the district right now. There are curricular needs, there are instructional needs, there's facility needs. I think the committee is doing a lot to address that. There are budgetary needs and positions in the budget that you're looking to fund. And so I think moving forward, the next superintendent is really going to have to work through the administrators, the teaching staff, teacher leaders, and even the community, and developing some real long-range plans. as I've thought about the district, there's that year one plan, I think, for a new superintendent. But then I'm thinking, 5 and 10-year plan in terms of addressing the needs, and then the communication plan to the why, the how, the why is this important, how does it improve the schools, how does it improve the communities of Dudley and Charlton in terms of that communication piece, and making sure that need is understood from the community perspective, and even with the municipal leaders. Because there are some real facility needs in the district moving forward. So I think that, as I've thought about it, that's kind of, you're really going to need to generate the why, and the why is this important within the community.
Elaine?
Burville has experienced a lot of change in leadership over the past few years. And we learned during our site visit of the demoralized feelings of the teaching and administrative staff that occurred through that change. Can you tell us how you came to lead Burville Public High School, and how did you change the trajectory of your school for students, teachers, and your administrative team?
When I started, my first year in Burville was the 9-10 school year. And I came in at that time as assistant principal, and the school administration, I think that was, at that time, was the 5th new principal. The year I came in, it was a new principal, and a number of assistant principal changes at that time. The following year, that principal, he left in October, and I moved into the principalship at that time. So I think I was the 6th principal in 4 years. And so at this point, I've been in district this is my 10th year in Burrillville. And, I remember young, she was a 9th or 10th grade student at the time. She came up to me and she said, "So when are you going to leave?" And that really, it stuck with me to this day, how traumatic that type of turnover can be for a student and a teacher, and just having so much change in such a short period of time. And there was a lot of, there wasn't a lot going on. Because of that change, the school had really stagnated. At one point, the school had been really at the forefront in Rhode Island of what was happening, and really being a leader in change. And then they got mired into this place of, when the first thing I was hired to do was really to fix the graduation system, because the state was ready to come in and significantly intervene. So we had to put together a plan to address how we were going to implement our digital portfolio system and Common Course assessments in that first year. So I beating the drum, part of it was demonstrating some longevity in the district, in the position, demonstrating that I was committed to the school, to the town, to the children, being present and being visible, and then building relationships, being, young and administrative experience at that time. There was a lot of, faculty members, how he's not going to last, he's not going to make it. And so it was having conversations, having difficult conversations at some points, because there were things that were just non-negotiable that we had to do. And then simultaneously, we really didn't have an aligned curricula at that time. And working with the curriculum director to develop a process and a curricular timeline, developing assessments, and then having a process to validate assessments. So there was a lot of work in those first few years. And then over time, I think I part of changing the culture was hiring You know, I've been able to hire a lot of staff at this point in developing teacher leadership and developing the relationships. To now, I think, I was asked in the site visit, what would happen if you left? And I think the work would continue. One of my favorite, you know, if I get hit by a bus, you know, it's gonna keep going. You know, the teacher leadership is really strong. You know, I think one of the things that was always at Burrillville, they had great teachers. You know, and I think that also exists here. There's a great teaching staff, and so if you have that, you can do the work pretty quick, and you can generate buy-in pretty quick in terms of the direction you're going to go. And it wasn't. A lot of times we like to use a lot of acronyms and you know, RTI, MTSS, and you know, it's not complex. It's about being consistent, being honest and open, and building relationships. And in that way, that's, I think, how I really was able to move the school from a place where it was really negative to now I feel really good about where the school is and what we've accomplished and where it's going.
Thank you.
Great. Well, you answered a lot of my data question that I have next, but let me go to this viewpoint on you. Could you provide us some examples of how you've used data to make decisions, plan, and budget, and work with others?
So how we use data to plan, budget, work with others. So one of the big systems that I feel like has been very successful for us is we've really implemented a good problem-solving team around response to intervention and positive behaviors, interventions, and supports. And in that team, I have a group that's been together for the core of the group. We've had some additions and some subtractions, but it's been together for 7 or 8 years now, where we're constantly looking at data. Today we met today, and we looked at our semester data for course failures, and we just had a conversation about what interventions we can do at the mid-year to support students. We've developed, you know, a math program, a reading program, a social emotional program, behavior program, and we kind of look at all of that data, and it's all geared toward improving student outcomes, improving achievement. And so that work has been really critical in moving the school forward, and I think even in the development of our math program, that's probably where the area where we've had the most success. In terms of the budget, you know, I'm constantly looking at, so let me start here. I think you have to, and I think of it this way with the budget, we want to be effective and efficient in our use of resources. And I don't think you can do that without looking at your programs and services with a critical eye and looking at some form of data. So if you have a math program that is supposed to provide progress monitoring and support and intervention to students, but then you've been implementing that program for 3 years and you've seen no student improvement, no student gains, is the program effective? Are you using that resource efficiently? So I like to look at data in that way, and so looking at programs and services in terms of, you know, what do we expect the outcomes to be, and are we seeing improvement? Then I think I look at it from a perspective of student enrollment, courses that we're offering, figuring out staffing levels, looking at special education data, making sure that we are compliant with IEP needs, and so I think there's a level of there. I've had to make a lot of staffing decisions based upon the budget, and I think I'm not proud of having to reduce staff, but I'm proud of, when reducing staff, being able to maintain and expand programs and services. And it has forced me to be a very creative student scheduler. So there's a lot there in terms of data. Like going back to, I like data. I like my data very accessible. And by accessible, I mean transparent. Data should be transparent, whether that's financial, whether that's, the people. You shouldn't be hiding data. You should put it in the hands of the people who can use it. And it should be easy to read and view. So I think from a superintendent's perspective, making sure that, if the school committee is requesting data, it's put in a format that communicates the intended message. And that translates to the budget as well.
Okay. My question you already kind of answered a little bit, but I know you said that you would be visible at student events and sporting events. My question was, our superintendents have always made sure to be known to the students by being present within the schools and at activities. I was wondering if you had a plan for how to be connected to our students.
As I told the students, I think I would lose my sanity if I sat in an office all day. I think professionally, I'm looking for the next challenge for me, but I still really like kids. So I like, the best part of my day is when I get to go into classrooms and interacting with students, seeing what they're learning. I think the best part of the day here was being in the schools and being at Charlton Elementary and the four little boys who took me around. That was, I get a kick out of that. And, so I don't ever want to lose that piece. I think being present in a classroom, as an administrator, I think at any level, when you lose that connection to the classroom, you lose connection to what's important. You lose connection to, why you do the job. So maintaining that for me, it's not, it's about my sanity, but it's also about to be an effective leader, to set the vision for the district. You need to always be mindful of that perspective. You need to be mindful of what is it like to be a teacher? What is it like to be a student? And I think you can have a much more impactful perspective if you always try to maintain that that sense of what's going on in a building, what's going on in a school. So that would be, sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you get bogged down in the operational stuff, and crises happen, and but you've got to have that impetus and push you have to make time for it.
We think we have excellent candidates. How can you convince us that you are the person for this position?
I've thought a lot about that. I keep coming back to initially looking at the district kind of from afar and the website, looking at the YouTube stuff and really connecting to different things. And then the more I looked, the more that I connected to. And then, on the first interview, feeling like there was a connection, relating to the questions and just that sense of comfort. then having Mrs. Terry and Mrs. Rabbit come to Burrowville and having a chance to interact with them is just that relationship and connection piece. And then the site visit and meeting couldn't tell you how many, but it was a lot. And I think one of the things that I said in the site visit here, I get a really strong sense of family, of this connectedness to the community and to the district, and that's something that I look for and I identify with. I don't take the jump for me is not something I take lightly. And so being in a community, in this case, 2 communities that I feel like will be a fit for me is really important. I'm not looking to go somewhere and have it be a short-term thing. I want to be in it, and I want to be in it for the long haul. So having a district have a value system that I identify with is important. And so I can sit here and say to you, this district has, I really identify with this district and the value system that I think exists here. I think the areas that I see this district moving towards are areas that I feel like I have a lot of experience in, and that I can certainly bring a lot to the table. And I'm not in the weeds, with the budget or the meetings or the data piece in terms of the way I would like to be. But even just looking at the budget meetings that you had last week, I'm looking at it and like, oh, okay, I can let me get in there and do that. And the different areas there. And it's the work that excites me. I get really excited about a lot of the stuff you're doing. And honestly, I think I would be the most excited about the facilities and really developing a plan. I know you're looking at that facility study, and I think that will gear the district up for the long-term vision. So I think why you should hire me. I think my value system, I think I'm a strong relationship builder, and I think I can grow with the district and really lead and bring the energy that I think the district is going to need in the next few years. So I would leave it there.
Okay. Our district is a multi-million-dollar operation. Some would say it should be run like a business. How would you respond?
School is never going to be a business. I think there are aspects of business management and organization and human resources that are certainly applicable to a school district. But I would also say when you deal with children, there's always going to be that human element, and there's always going to be that need to pay attention to the whole child. So my goal would be to incorporate the best of both worlds. I think business, you want things to be efficient and effective, but you don't want to lose that human touch. I think a lot of what I've said, part of what we do is customer service. And so you want to maximize, I think, the chances for positive interactions with parents, with students, with community members. But you want to, manage your resources efficiently. So it's a fine line, but I think I would always err on the side of kind of the nurturing, caring. I think just being an educator in general, that's how we fall. And that side is you're never gonna take that out of being an educator.
Thank you.
Would you like some water while we keep going? There's some water. Do you want to give me a cup of water?
Yes.
Can we go in?
It's
They can
right
get it,
there.
oh, you can get it, yeah, just in case it's a long talking.
I've been fighting a cough. Thank you.
Sure. How do you keep the school committee informed? In particular, what is your strategy about issues that are your responsibility, but the school committee would be interested in?
My drum of relationships. I think the relationship piece is again important with the school committee. I think if you want a superintendent is like the CEO and you're the board. And so I think it's important for a superintendent to establish a positive working relationship with everybody on the school committee. I think it's important that you're well informed. In that there's certainly decisions a superintendent has to make, and you empower the superintendent to do that, but that process of informing you about what's going on in the district and the rationale behind those decisions, I think, is important. So I think the personal conversations, I think I'm a fan of, kind of a weekly update that's sent to the school committee about what's going on in the district, about anything kind of important that's come up, things that are upcoming in each of the schools. So I think it would be, part of it would be that kind of establishing that working relationship with whoever comes into the position. I'm certainly open and comfortable with whatever form that would need to take with the school committee. And I would want the school committee to feel like I was approachable, that you could certainly ask me for information, and that I would go get that for you.
So I'll start by saying that of the about 40 people or so you had us meet on the site visit, everyone spoke very highly about how they would not want to lose you. And so I guess my question to you here is, they spoke a lot about what you brought to them and such. What makes you sure you're ready to take this next step in your career?
Being in my current position for 10 years, and I'll come back to, I feel like the school is at a really good place, and we're fine-tuning. We're really looking at systems and processes, and we're fine-tuning at this point. There's nothing there that I need to build. And that's part of what I really like to do. Kind of the final piece for me has been our career and technical programming and expanding our pathways. And we're kind of in the end phase of that. And so I think I thrive on a challenge. Part of the reason I like to schedule is I see it as a puzzle. That's kind of I like to solve, and I like a lot of things going on. So for me, it's about the professional growth, the challenge of moving into a superintendency and leading a district. I do have a vision of a K-12 system, of a system that's very personalized, that's inclusive, that is really built to support student needs, K-12. So that's what I'm looking forward to, and I just I feel like I'm ready for that next step. But it would certainly be very difficult to leave. Anywhere you've been for that long and period of time, you establish those relationships, and it's a great school with great people. So that speaks to them too, and not wanting to leave. But for me, it's about finding a place where I feel like I'll fit in, and I can really make a difference in a mark moving it forward.
Thank you.
Dr. Whaley, do you have any closing remarks?
Well, you already asked me why,
Yeah.
why you should hire
I'm
me.
just giving you a chance if you have anything else to add.
You know, I think I would close with, I would look forward to the opportunity and the challenge in this district, and I think there are a tremendous number of opportunities in a lot of different areas, and just from the outside looking in, I feel like from the school committee, to Dr. Nash, to the central office staff, administrators and teachers, you have a lot of great things going on, and it makes it I want to be a part of that, and so everybody here has helped to create that culture, and I'm very appreciative of this opportunity. I understand none of you take this decision lightly. It's a big decision for the district, and I'm appreciative, and I know you guys will make the best decision for the district.
Again, on behalf of the Dudley-Charlton Regional School District, I would like to thank you for your interest in this position. Over the next few weeks, we will be completing finalist interviews. The committee is still on schedule to deliberate and select a new Dudley-Charlton superintendent on the evening of February 27th. Should you have any questions between now and then, please feel free to contact the interim superintendent's office, and they will direct your question to the appropriate individual. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.